Take a look at the phone in your hand, or maybe the computer on your desk. There's a pretty good chance it has an Apple logo on it. We're talking about a company that has, no exaggeration, shaped our modern world. But you might not know that its 50-year story isn't some straight line to the top. Oh no, it's more like a Hollywood epic with a shocking fall from grace and one of the most incredible comebacks you've ever heard of.
So that's really the big question we're tackling here. How on earth does a company start in a garage, become a global phenomenon, then come this close to total bankruptcy, only to rise from the ashes and become one of the most valuable corporations in history? It's a wild story about vision, spectacular failure, and ultimately redemption.
We're going to break this story down into 4 acts. First up, how the revolution began. Then, how the company ended up on the brink of collapse. After that, the incredible second coming. And finally, its transformation into the global titan we see today.
Okay, let's dive into part 1. We're rewinding the clock all the way back to 1976. And you have to remember, personal computers back then were not the sleek, easy-to-use devices we know. They were really just for hardcore hobbyists and tech nerds. And man, those early years were an absolute whirlwind. In '76, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak start the company. Just a year later, the Apple II comes out and it is a smash hit. By 1980, they go public and bam, over 300 millionaires are created overnight. Then comes 1984 when they launch the Macintosh with one of the most iconic TV commercials of all time, showing the world a whole new way to use a computer.
Now here's the really interesting part about why the Apple II was such a huge success. It was all because of a piece of software called VisiCalc. It was the world's first electronic spreadsheet. Before this, people did this stuff on paper. Can you imagine? It was a tedious nightmare. Suddenly, VisiCalc turned the personal computer from a hobbyist's toy into an absolutely essential tool for business. It basically created the market.
Apple was growing like crazy, and to manage it, Jobs recruited Pepsi executive John Sculley with this legendary pitch. I mean, how do you say no to that? But this partnership, which was supposed to be a dream team, was about to become the spark for a devastating power struggle.
And that leads us right into Apple's dark ages. This is the period where the company lost its visionary founder and, well, completely lost its way.
So get this. In a shocking boardroom coup, the very man Jobs hired, John Sculley, convinces the board to push Jobs out. In 1985, Steve Jobs was literally exiled from the company he created. He left and went on to found a new company called Next.
Without Jobs, Apple's strategy became a complete mess. They were making a whole bunch of confusing and really expensive computers. At the exact same time, the rest of the world was standardizing around the cheaper Wintel platform. PCs with Intel chips running Microsoft Windows. Apple was losing market share and fast.
By the time we get to 1997, the situation was catastrophic. The company that had once defined the entire industry was basically on life support.
It is so hard to imagine now, but it's true. The company was bleeding money, its products weren't selling, and by some reports, it was just weeks away from going completely bankrupt. The ship was sinking.
And then, just when all hope was lost, came one of the greatest second acts in business history, the return of the king.
In a total Hail Mary move, Apple bought Steve Jobs' new company, Next. Now, officially, they were buying its software to save their failing operating system. But the real prize? It was getting Steve Jobs himself back in the door. He returned as interim CEO, and he was ready to overhaul everything. And Jobs did not mess around. He came in and performed what was basically radical surgery. He slashed 70% of their bloated product line. He killed the Mac clone program that was eating into their profits. And then, in a move that just stunned the entire tech world, he announced a $150 million investment from their biggest rival, Microsoft. The very first product of this new era was the iMac. With its bright, colorful, see-through design, it looked like absolutely nothing else on the market, and it was an instant sensation. It was a clear signal to everyone that Apple was back, with a serious new focus on bold, simple design.
Then, in 2001, Apple moved beyond just computers. They gave us the iPod. 1,000 songs in your pocket. It didn't just change things, it completely upended the entire music industry. It basically killed the CD and paved the way for all the streaming services we use today. It became one of the most iconic gadgets of all time.
And this is where you see the true genius of the strategy. See, the iPod wasn't just hardware. It was a storefront for a whole new digital world.
The iTunes Store made buying music online simple, legal, and cool. And the growth, as you can see, was just explosive. It hit 5 billion downloads by 2008 and 10 billion just 2 years after that.
And in 2007, the revolution hit its peak with the iPhone. This thing wasn't just a new phone, it was a supercomputer that fit in your hand. It completely redefined the mobile industry and single-handedly created the massive app economy that we all live in today. A total, complete game changer.
After Steve Jobs tragically passed away in 2011, the huge question was, could Apple possibly continue its incredible run? The answer was a resounding yes. The company was entering its fourth act, becoming a true global titan.
So if you look at Apple's business today, the iPhone is still the dominant force, making up about half of all their money. But look at that services chunk. That's the App Store, Apple Music, iCloud. It's now the second biggest part of the company. It's bigger than the Mac and the iPad businesses combined. That's a huge deal.
This whole transformation is built on just one thing: incredible scale. Right now, there are more than 2 billion active Apple devices out in the world. That massive ecosystem is the engine that powers their entire services business.
And the result of all this? Well, in 2018, Apple became the first public U.S. company ever to be worth $1 trillion. As of late 2025, that valuation has soared to over $4 trillion. To put that into perspective, that's more than the GDP of most countries. It is simply one of the most valuable companies on the planet. So from near bankruptcy to a multi-trillion-dollar empire, it has been an absolutely incredible journey. Apple has already fundamentally changed at least 3 major industries, which leaves us with one final question. Are they going to do it again? And if so, what's next?